Alright, hey, what's going on, folks? Gnarlord here, back at it again on the YouTube for another YouTube video. Today we're looking at This Week at Bungie once again, so I'm going to recommend go grab a grab a drink, maybe a snack. I think the TWAB actually says that. This is a long one, so let's go ahead and let's get right into it. So from DMG, This Week at Bungie, we seem to have written a short novel about upcoming weapons sandbox changes. Hello, dear reader. I'd like to kick off this TWAB with a quick word of advice. Never end your drafting phase with your introduction. I've been kicking this thing around for 15 minutes now, trying to figure out the best way to launch you into yet another Mega TWAB worth of sandbox information. We've got quite a few changes planned for next season, and we're excited to start spreading the word. Let's keep our conversation about the live game short and sweet, shall we? It's an interesting week, to say the least. Master difficulty for VoG, the Disciples kicked off, with just a few short weeks left before Guardians begin to claim their raid titles. Grandmasters continue to push the limits of player skill build crafting, and general game strategy Iron Banner has come and gone. But Trials of Osiris returns this Friday with some light changes to the post-flawless experience. There's quite a bit to do, especially if you're trying to finish off each fresh triumph released with the Witch Queen and Season of the Risen. All said, we're having a good time, and we hope you are too. Even with a solid launch in our sales, the winds of change will always patch. I'm going to go ahead and move this up a little bit. We'll always catch up to Destiny. As mentioned, we'll be talking about how those winds are shifting the sands of our weapons sandbox. Some of you know the Destiny sandbox is like the back of your hands in some cases well enough to release a 45-minute video about the intricacies of shotguns. Well, do we have some changes ready for you? Alright, so I'm ready to go with that next Fallout shotgun video. Excited for that one. I'm sure he'll be making one because there are some shotgun changes coming. I've been known to recommend grabbing a drink of water, there it is, and a snack for larger TWABs, and there is no difference, or this is no different. Take this at your own pace, have a good time, and ask questions once you're through. Our community and sandbox teams will be at the ready to issue clarifications as we can, and we'll follow up in the future post-TWABs or other means of communication as necessary. So, that's a big sandbox. In a few short sentences, we'll be passing the mic off to staff designer Chris Proctor. Chris joins us today as a representative of the team, speaking to a few hundred bullets of sandbox patch notes that were developed by a group of ragtag guardians here at the studio. Each of them contributed many, many hours of their time to get these changes prepped and ready for Season 17, beginning May 24th, and we're expecting Crucible changes to shift a bit in just a few short weeks. For those that aren't in tune with the intricacies of the Destiny sandbox, this will be a lot to take in. You might need to wait a bit for a fellow community member to break down some changes to be less daunting. From a high level, we're covering today. All right, a handful of goals from the team, Glaives, commentary on their design and some plans for the future, tuning, Flinch and Airborne gameplay and how we're pushing those into build crafting, tuning one-hit kills in Crucible, and then general tuning for special ammo, exotic weaponry, legendary archetypes, and a slew of weapon perks. So let's go ahead and get into it. So from Proctor, g'day, Guardians. Funny. In Season 17, the Sandbox team is making changes across all specs of the Sandbox to improve the player experience of PvP. Here are the weapon team's goals for that goals to support that. So, introduce layers to tune how players build the airborne gunplay. Destiny has extremely fluid and expressive airborne movement, but that movement must be balanced against grounded players, lest it become oppressive. We want players who enjoy that playstyle to be able to build into it, but they'll have to make tough choices about the way what they leave behind to do so. Successfully engaging in the air will no longer be as simple as put Icarus Grip mod on it, but the upside for heavily investing in it will be higher. Allow players to mitigate the flinch. Excessive flinch is a frequent complaint from players, most importantly when using primary weapons and taking large chunks of damage from enemies. Players should be able to invest in flinch resistance, and baseline flinch should be lower on primary weapons, but hand-tuned per archetype so that weapons need flinch resistance that have the easiest access to it. Reduce the number of one-hit kills in PvP. Sandbox overall wants to reduce the number of one-hit kills in PvP, shifting combat more towards primary gunplay. With weapons, this means tuning special weapons, both the effectiveness of specific weapons and specific special weapon uptime overall, and one key primary outlier, and address common feedback on weapons across all game modes. Each season, the weapon team looks at legendary and exotic weapons that are over or underperforming and make some adjustments. Season 17 will be a larger pass than usual. Hear that, guys? PvP mains, get excited. With more of a focus on underused weapons and PvP balance. With our goals stated, let's get into the meat of all of it. First up, Glaives. So, Glaive Rave. We've noticed that several aspects of how glaives interact with weapons and armor perks don't match player expectations, and when it takes some time to clarify the intent, the changes included in Season 17, and the logical use for the future changes. The Glaive melee is a basic melee attack, not a weapon attack, doesn't consume ammo, and deals kinetic damage, so it's more like an unpowered punch than a sword swing. Allowing buffs to weapon damage to apply Glaive melees would be too powerful for something without an ammo limitation, particularly in PvP, where even a small damage buff would allow for an incredibly fast 2-hit kill. Also, in general, we prefer the increased Glaive melee damage directly, as we're doing in fact, instead of effectively making weapon damage perks mandatory on Glaives. Glaives already have a long lunge distance, and increasing this at all results in unreliable behavior over the network, so no melee lunge distance buffs apply to Glaive melees. Our intent is Glaive melees should activate perks that trigger base off melee damage or kills. For example, ammo refill from Grave Robber, weapon damage buff times 5 stacks, and Swashbuckler, ammo refill from Steeled Ahamkara Grasps. Glaive melee should not activate perks that trigger off powered melee damage or kills, or reacquire expending subclass melee energy, such as Combination Bow or Assassin's Cow. Glaive melees should benefit from melee damage buffs, such as Winter's Guile or Wormgod Caress. Glaive melees should not benefit from weapon damage buffs, such as Rampage, Killclip, Swashbuckler. Glaive projectiles should benefit from weapon damage buffs. Okay, with that expectation set, there are some inconsistencies with how these implementations implemented in the game, some of which are already fixed, and some of which we're working on in the future. Once we have those guidelines consistently implemented in-game, we may look at specific cases where this doesn't match player expectation and do something custom, updating descriptions where needed for clarification, but our primary goal is that players be able to predict how a Glaive interaction will work. Here's what we've changed during Season 16, largely bug fixes and quality of life changes. So Glaive projectile hits a maximum energy decreased from 6 to 4, so that is a 33% decrease. Glaive melee can now be interrupted by Hunter Dodge. The Grave Robber perk now pulls from reserves on Glaives instead of generating ammo. Glaives no longer get stuck in Clang recovery when using a melee attack on each other. Sealed Ahamkara Grasps no longer reload Glaives on projectile hits, but does on melee hits as expected. Glaive melees can no longer stunlock high health combatants. Glaive melee kills are now tracked in match history for bounties and so forth. Here's what's changing in Season 17. We're pushing Glaives deeper into the roles of hard-hitting melee damage and near complete protection when shielded, as well as increasing projectile speed to make them more reliable at range. So note, the Glaive shield grants 97.5% damage resistance in PvE, 75% in PvP. Increased damage, melee damage versus PvE enemies, except for bosses and vehicles, by 25%. Reduce energy drain speed while shielded by 30%, and increase projectile speed dependent on the range stat. At 0 stat, increased from 30 to 60, and then at 100 stat, increased from 80 to 100 meters per second. Sweet. So, Glaives are getting a bit of a buff. Pretty excited about that. And then we're going to talk about the exotic Glaive changes here. So, exotic Glaives that have all been buffed in addition to the global Glaive changes, which make it easier to build energy, projectile speed, making landing shots easier, and energy granted per projectile hit. So on the Titan Glaive Edge of Action, players now gain a Void Overshield while inside the bubble. Helm of Saint 14 now applies to this bubble as it does with Ward of Dawn. Warlock Glaive, Edge of Intent, increased speed of acceleration of the healing turret projectiles, and then Hunter Glaive, Edge of Concurrence, tripled the damage of the wave detonation, holy crap, increased the number of enemies it can chain from 4 to 8, so Hunter Glaives just got a huge buff, so tripled the damage of the wave, and then literally doubled the enemies that can chain from the chain reaction there on it. That's pretty huge. All right, so global changes to Flinch. First up, aim deflection on receiving damage, typically called Flinch, is a common pain point, particularly on primary ammo weapons. We've rebuilt this ability weapon stat to grant Flinch resistance in addition to its other effects, with a maximum Flinch resistance of 10 to 25%, dependent on weapon archetype. With this change, players can build for Flinch resistance more easily on weapons that feel flinch more than others, and less so on special weapons, which we don't want to be easier to use when under fire. From internal playtests, you may not feel the difference when using just one source of flinch resistance, but when stacking 2 or more sources, the benefit is strong. So note, higher zoom weapons are more affected by flinch, which we took into account when tuning these numbers. So here's a breakdown for flinch resistance with 100 stability. 25% on auto rifle, submachine gun, and bow, 20% on pulse rifle, scout rifle, sidearm, and machine gun, 15% hand cannon, trace rifle, and then 10% for fusion rifle, shotgun, sniper rifle, grenade launcher, both breach and drum, linear fusion rifle, both special and heavy versions, and rocket launchers. Note that stability stat below 20 will technically have a small flinch resistance penalty, but only around 5 weapons have a stability stat in that range. Mentioning here because it's related change, the resilience character stat now grants flinch resistance at 0% if the stat is 0 stat, and then 10% at 100 stat. So it looks like your resilience is now actually tied to your flinch resistance as well. So for instance, I pretty much always run a 6 resilience at least, which means I would get 6% of additional resistance on top of whatever the weapon is and whatever I'm building towards. So examples, note that sources of flinch resistance stack multiplicatively. A 100 stat Suros pulse rifle with Suros synergy active. So 10 resilience, no distractions, and 2 unflinching pulse rifle mods, while buffed by Rally Barricade, 8 times 8 times 9 times 6, 5 times 7 times 5 times 1, i.e. equals 90% flinch resistance, and then a 70 stability stat, hand cannon, 5 resilience, 1 unflinching hand cannon mod would get you 39% flinch resistance. So got to be an awful lot of testing in the Crucible to see how all this stuff works here in a few weeks, but that all sounds pretty great. This all seems an awful like they're trying to push us more towards using primary weapons more often to help try to curb that little bit of, I don't know, getting fusioned every 8 seconds in the Crucible. So airborne gunplay. Before getting to build crafting, we've made a fundamental change to the modifiers applied while airborne. Your primary weapons will have less randomness and projectile accuracy in most cases. You'll have less aim assist instead, and will need precise aiming to land your shots without building heavily into airborne. We've added new weapon stat, airborne effectiveness. Sweet, so we got that. Which is present on all weapons, except those where being airborne doesn't have any effect. Swords, for example, which maps into aspects of airborne gunplay using these guidelines. With little to no investment, 0 to 30 airborne stat, a character will have a smaller accuracy penalty than retail, but will have significantly lower aim assist. With minimal investment, from 31 to 50 airborne stat, a character will have around the same in-air accuracy as Icarus-equipped weapons do currently, but with noticeably lower aim assist. With substantial investment, 51 to 70, the character will have a better accuracy than retail weapons with Icarus, with fewer misses due to randomness, but reduced aim assist. Specialized investment, 71 to 99 airborne stat, a character will have no airborne accuracy penalty with very slightly less aim assist. With full investment, 100 airborne stat, a character will have no airborne accuracy penalty and the same aim assist. Okay, so you can have 100% accuracy in the air, but you will have 0 aim assist while in the air. So it's kind of like a trade-off there, it looks like. This stat has been hand-tuned on all exotic weapons. Everything is shipped in Season 17 or Season 16, and everything that has ever been shipped in Trials of Osiris and Nightfall Loot. Older legendary weapons have a default value set per weapon, archetypes to a value just below the middle of the allowed stat range. No, this will be a hidden stat in Season 17 launch. Similar to aim assist and recoil direction, you'll be able to check the stat on specific weapons through the API, and in Seasons 18, several previously hidden stats will be visible on the weapon inspection screen. I'm very happy that they're finally bringing some of these stats to us on in-game, rather than having to go to like Light GG to look at these hidden stats as far as like your recoil direction and that kind of stuff. It's just one less thing I have to do, and it's just a great quality of life change, so kudos to Bungie on that one. The stats influence several aspects of airborne gunplay. Aim assist, cone, penalty angles, a high penalty to this angle at 0 stat, and a low penalty at 100 stat. Accuracy, cone, penalty angle for primary weapons, a lower penalty than currently at 0 stat, 0 penalty at 60 to 100 stat. Accuracy, cone, penalty for special weapons, a slightly lower penalty than currently at 0 stat, 0 penalty at 100 stat. Headshot aim assist, 0 at 0 stat, 1 degree at 100 stat on primary weapons, slug shotguns, linear fusion rifles, and machine guns, 0.5 degrees on sniper rifles. This controls how forgiving headshots are while airborne. If this is 0, you must be pinpoint aiming precisely at the head to get the headshot. Otherwise, you'll get a body shot even if your aim assist cone overlaps with heads. Previously, while airborne, players would get full aim assist for headshots, provided their aim assist cone overlapped with head at all. Pellet shotgun spread angle plus 25% at 0 stats, 0 at 100 stat, i.e. more shotgun spread at low airborne effectiveness stats. What this means overall is that you'll get fewer misses due to randomness from the accuracy cone while airborne, but reliance on aiming is much higher at low stat. To make this easier, you'll need to build into airborne. With decent aim, you will land more body shots instead of crits. before and after examples of accuracy cone penalty. So a few examples here. So a hand cannon before 0.667 degrees airborne accuracy penalty. After 0 stat is at 0.450 degrees. After 60 stat is at 0 degrees. Sniper rifle before 3 degrees. After 0 stat is 2 degrees. After 60 degrees stat is 0.8 degrees. And after 100 stat is 0 degrees. The airborne effectiveness stat comes in 3 sources: weapon, subclass, and armor. Weapon. The weapon's base airborne effectiveness stat that ranges varying from 0 to 10 and 0 to 30 depending on the weapon archetype. Exotic weapons typically get bumped up, i.e. higher stat than legendary weapons in the archetypes unless they are already extremely strong. The Icarus Gripped Adept Icarus weapon mod plus 15. Certain weapon perks such as redesigned air assault, valid stat ranges on legendary weapons exotic sometimes exceeds these. So hand cannon is 0 to 25, sidearm is 0 to 30, auto rifle 0 to 25, pulse rifle 0 to 25, scout rifle 0 to 20, submachine gun 0 to 30, bow 0 to 20, sniper rifle 0 to 5, shotgun 0 to 5, fusion rifle 0 to 10, breach grenade launchers 0 to 5, trace rifle 0 to 15, rocket launcher 0 to 10, machine gun 0 to 20, linear fusion rifle 0 to 15, drum grenade launcher 0 to 20, glaive 0 to 15. Higher tiers of legendary weapons, trials, raid, nightfall use the upper end of these ranges, as with other stats. Some examples of exotic weapon outliers: Sweet Business is 27, Merciless is 15, Fighting Line is 12, Sunshine is 27, Skyrim's Armor is 35, Rat King 30, Huckleberry 33, Ace of Spades 14. As an example of an exotic, this is already plenty strong enough. It doesn't need to excel here. The Chaperone, 1, which is ditto. Thunderlord 26, Traveler Chosen 35, Redacted 29. Oh, there's a new, there's the new exotic coming, 29. Some examples of hand-tuned legendary weapon stats: Frontier's Cry 19, Deliverance 9, Submission 27, Silicon Aroma 4, Kentata 5712, The Messenger 20, Hung Jury 22, Ragnall D3, Igneous Hammer 23. The subclass: the Heat Rises ability is a plus 70 Heat Rises is active, i.e. on consuming your grenade. The Tempered Metal ability is plus 20 after getting a solar weapon kill. The Whisper of Hedron Stasis Fragment, plus 20 after freezing a target. Exotic armor. Armor that revolves around being airborne or works on specific weapons grants a bonus or penalty in the negative 50 to plus 40 range or higher if conditional. Foe Tracer plus 20 to all. Mechaneers Trick Sleeves plus 50 to sidearms. Oathkeepers is plus 40 to bows. Sealed Alhamgara Graphs is plus 50 to all for 5 seconds after a melee hit. Lucky Pants plus 20 to hand cannons after readying a hand cannon. Stompies negative 50 to all. No Backup Plans plus 30 to shotguns. Actium Warrig plus 30 to auto rifles, machine guns. Hollow Heart plus 20 to all. Lion Rampart 50 hipfire all. Peacemakers 40 to submachine guns. Peregrine Greaves plus 20 to all. Eye of Another World plus 15 to all. Astrocyte Verse plus 30 to all. Fitting Aspects 10 to all. Necrotic Grips 30 to Weapons of Sorrow. Oh, all right. I'm glad that you actually used that term right there, because that means we're probably going to be getting some more of those. Winged of Sacred Dawns plus 50 to all. Boots of the Assembler plus 30 to Lumina. And then Redacted plus 30 to fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles. So we are getting, I would assume, something in the armor department that's going to buff fusion rifles next season. So I don't know, right here. Might be it right there. Interesting. Next, this means that in general we want a good airborne effectiveness, say 70 stat. You should pick a weapon with high stat, put Icarus on it, and either equip an exotic armor piece that helps, or run a subclass aspect, fragment, or ability. If you want the best possible airborne effectiveness, you'll generally have to go all in on weapon, exotic armor, or subclass. Examples: Frontier Cry with precision hand cannon bonus, Icarus Grip plus Lucky Pants, 19, 25, 15, 20 equals 79 airborne effectiveness. Submission with Icarus Grip, Stompies, Tempered Metal effectiveness. You get 12 airborne effectiveness out of that. Teraba with Peacekeepers and Weapons of Hedron active, 83 airborne effectiveness. And then Skyburner's Oath with Heat Rises active is 100, i.e. it is capped. Okay, so we're getting capped at 100. This is a big weapons change, big weapon system change. We'll be monitoring how it rolls out. Expect to make adjustments post-ship for fun. Here are some graphs showing the most used armor exotics across each class. We'll be watching data and feedback once these changes are live to see how things shift. So if you want to see these guys, go ahead and click in right on there. You can see what the most used ones are and all that good stuff. So it looks like Aeon Souls, all the way down to Nezarec Sin, they're all on there. All right, so now, playlist weapons. The latest playlist weapons drop from Gambit, Crucible, and Strike activity completions. Older weapons are available from vendor rank packages or can be focused. These weapons are intended to provide interesting drops, even for players who spend a lot of time in an activity. And while we want to keep a large perk pools to address that goal, we want to provide a way to reduce the duration of the chaser players who want a specific weapon. Also, since the older playlist weapons are still available as vendor rank up rewards, we want them to feel more relevant in post-origin trait world. So, playlist weapons now have a chance to roll with extra traits in one or both columns, increasing the number of rank resets with that vendor during the given season. Note, reputation resets each season, so you'll need to play these activities each season to unlock the potential for extra perks. All playlist weapons from Beyond Light and later will drop with appropriate origin trait. Very fantastic. All right. So anything you got after Beyond Light now has the origin traits on it from the actual playlist weapons. And then once you reset your rank, you can get double perks to go on those, like the third and the fourth column, I'm assuming. Stat display update. Following the recent change on how to show numbers for all the stats instead of just bars, we've opted to change the stat display and weapons to be more clearly reflect their capabilities. All weapons stat bars now range from 0 to 100 instead of being limited by to some range in the middle of the bar. This change eliminates rounding in other errors, particularly on adept weapons, masterworks, and enhanced traits, and better conveys the bounds of a weapon can exist within. This is purely a display change. The weapon behavior has changed, but you should expect all existing weapon stat bars to look slightly different. All right, so excited to have. I'm just excited to have the numbers actually up on the weapons. It just makes it so much easier to actually look and see what it is without having to go to Light GG again. One-hit kills and special ammo. There are several damage buffs external to weapons that allow weapons to one-hit kill without much investment, such as aggressive sniper rifles with high-impact reserves, Iona's Vow, or Lay Monarch, specifically when combined with an external 20% damage buff. As an example, Empowering Rift can give you many sniper rifles one-hit body shot capabilities in the Crucible. Most of these same buffs under the hood, so we've just adjusted them all at once. So with these changes, it's going to be much rarer to get an easy one-hit kill with a weapon you wouldn't typically allow it. So reduce the damage bonus on Empowering Rifts, High Energy Fire, and Inertia Override from 20 to 15% against players, and they're not changing that in PvE, so that's good. In addition, we want special ammo to be less plentiful, making it more difficult to chain special weapon kills, so disabled ammo scavenger mods in PvP. No matter how much ammo a player is carrying on death, if you pick up a special brick, you can only get one ammo for a shotgun or sniper rifle, or one kill's worth of ammo for weapons that require more than one shot to kill, e.g. Forerunner or trace rifles. So returned several special weapon archetypes from exotic weapons, see below, with the general goal of reducing the effectiveness and uptime of special weapons. So, archetypes. Special weapons, in particular shotguns and fusion rifles, are responsible for more one-hit kills than we'd like in PvP. We still want to see them be an option, but less ubiquitous, less effective at multiple ranges, and with lower uptime. Special weapons. So all special weapons have had their inner accuracy significantly reduced. While we are okay with encouraging players to build into using their primary weapons more effectively in the air, we do not believe a prevalence of airborne one-hit kill options is good in PvP. Special weapons have a slightly larger airborne accuracy penalty than primary weapons at 0 airborne effectiveness stat, reduced 0 to 0 at 100 stat. Special weapons have a similar airborne aim assist cone penalty to other weapons, around 50% at 0 stat, and this penalty can be reduced but not entirely removed by investing in airborne effectiveness. Sniper rifles are fairly slow to ready and stow to aim down sights, which is made snapshot feel mandatory for most players. So they reduce the stow, ready, and aim down sight speed by 10% for all snipers, so they're going to be a little more snappier now. I'm excited. I use sniper rifles in Crucible pretty often. If you've ever seen me in Trials, I am Cloud Strike main. I absolutely love it. Sniper rifles have less access to ammo than shotguns and fusion rifles, where kills drop ammo right in front of you, so we think ammo scarcity will prevent snipers from spiking. Probably right, because once I get those first 2 kills, you know, it's kind of over on the sniper rifle, so I run over there and pick it up, but sometimes it's difficult in Trials. So slug and pellet shotguns are still overwhelmingly popular in PvP despite some recent changes, so we've touched them again with the goal of encouraging diversity in special weapon choices. We're keeping an eye on this change since we've touched shotguns multiple times recently and will adjust if it needed. So with this change, we expect shotguns to have a shorter one-hit kill distance, but will still be effective enough in that short-range kill roll. This change reduces shotgun one-hit kill distance by around 0.5 meters because the importance of spread angle is just as high as damage fall-off, and it has not been touched. So reduce damage fall-off start and end by 1 meter. Reduce aim assist and magnetism fall-off start and end by 2 meters. Fusion rifle usage is trending pretty high, particularly in Trials, and bringing shotguns down a little more would make them too good an option, so we've made a global change. With these changes, 20 meters plus fusion rifle one-hit kill should be very uncommon through a combination of damage fall-off and recoil changes. So reduce damage fall-off near distance, 2 meters at 0 range, 1.3 meters at 100 range, reduce damage fall off at far distance. 1 meter at 0 range, 1.3 meters at 100 range, reduce recoil scalar variance between 0 and 100 stability. 100 stability increase 0.5 to 0.55, i.e. increase recoil penalty slightly. When we rebuilt fusion rifles in Season 15, we wanted to differentiate the subfamilies dramatically from each other, which worked. Now that we've seen them in action for a couple seasons, we're pulling back from the extremes a little with these changes. Fusion rifle subfamilies are still very different from each other, but high impacts are stronger with rapid fires. Precisions should be a little less dominant. High impacts reduce unmodified high impact charge time from 1 second to 0.96 seconds. Increase damage per burst by 10. Okay. Precision increase unmodified charge time from 0.74 to 0.78. Rapid fire increase unmodified change time from 0.46 to 0.5. Decrease damage per burst by 20. New charge time and damage per burst for all fusion rifle subfamilies. High impact 0.96, 330 damage. Precision 0.78, 280 damage. Adaptive 0.66, 270 damage, and then rapid fire 0.5, 245 damage. Besides Divinity, trace rifles aren't as popular in hard content as we want them to be. We particularly want damage type reworks for the oldest 3 trace rifles to have a chance to shine in this season. And they're also more affected by disabling scavenger armor mods and other special weapons. With this change, they are better use of special ammo against non-red bar targets. Increase trace rifle damage against non-red bar combatants by 20%. Increase ammo pickup per special ammo brick by 18 to 30. Primary weapons, auto rifles, and pulse rifles aren't as competitive as we'd like them to be. Mid-range and lightweight pulse rifles are hard to use to hit their optimal time to kill. With these changes, we expect auto rifles and pulse rifles to better compete with hand cannons at mid to long range and outrange standard zoom submachine guns. So, auto rifles increase damage fall off near distance by 0.75 meters. 100 range increased from 22.5 to 24 meters. Note this is the hip fire fall off distance, and it's multiplied by the zoom fact value to get the aim down sights fall off distance. Damage fall off. Sorry, my voice is going. Damage fall off. Far distance remains 40 meters regardless of range stat. Increase lightweight, 450 RPM pulse rifle damage per bullet from 15 to 16. That'll be pretty interesting. So it increases it from 24.75 to 26.4. This won't change the optimal time to kill in PvP, but will reduce the number of crits required. So it'll make it a little bit easier to kill somebody with a rapid fire pulse. Zoom is too important a factor in submachine guns. Submachine guns are with low zoom don't feel competitive in PvP. We've reduced the variance in zoom, brought up base zoom from 13 to 14, and extended the bullet fall-off distance. With this change, several standard zoom submachine guns will be more competitive, but this does not make the inaccessible submachine gun with highest perk trait RNG multi-mach compete less with auto rifles. It will no longer straight up outclass every other submachine gun in PvP. So, increased damage fall off by 1.5 meters. Adjusted zoom values, the most viable legendary submachine guns and one exotic. So Shire's Wrath is 17 to 16. Multi-Mach with zoom 17 to 15. Stochastic variable 13 to 14. Arbolous 13 to 14. Seventh Seraph 13 to 14. Every Waking Moment 13 to 14. And Huckleberry 13 to 15. We like adaptive submachine guns are starting to make them again, but in their current form, they kill a little too fast with body shots, so we've reduced body kill damage to increase their body shot time to kill by 1 bullet without impacting their optimal time to kill. Decrease body damage from 12 to 11.25. Increase precision multiplier from 1.35 to 1.44. Precision frame hand cannons have always been good while airborne, effectively having built-in Icarus grip. And with this change to airborne functionality, we wanted to preserve that feel while translating their advantage in the new system. So intrinsic switch from 75% airborne accuracy penalty reduced by plus 25 airborne effectiveness stat. That means that if you had the Frontier's Cry with an Icarus Grip mod on it, you would be a 19 plus 25 plus 15, which would be 15% before factoring in armor and subclass. All right, continuing on. Heavy weapons. Machine guns still aren't where we want them to be in PvE. So we're giving them an additional buff, but less so against bosses, where the extremely long range and deep ammo reserves would like to make them strong against too many rolls. With this change, they'll shred most enemies without stepping on the top tier boss damage options. Increase damage by 40% against PvE enemies, 20% versus bosses. That is huge. Xenophage and Granoviture receive this buff, except for the bonuses versus bosses. And there we go. Brought back down to the life. Ooh. All right, well, at least we get plus 40% damage PvE, 20% bosses. We might actually be able to use machine guns again. I mean, at least a little bit. Sword stats have their inconsistency for a while now, so we've tidied them up, all of those up, most cosmetically. Fixed several inconsistencies in the stat display between different swords. This is no gameplay impact. Increased the charge rate of Sola's Scar from 20 to 50 to match Temptation's Hook. Rocket launcher subfamilies weren't differentiated enough by the previous change, so we've made the differences more extreme. With this change, we expect there to be more marked trade-off to the intrinsic tracking on precisions and a greater benefit for the other subfamilies specified relative to the baseline, i.e. high-impact rocket launchers. So precision damage rocket launchers got a negative 10% damage buff. 10% damage nerf. High impact, no change. And then adaptive and aggressive has gotten a 10% damage buff. So Ascendancy, pull that bad boy out. It's got to get better. Exotics. All exotics that shipped before Forsaken release now have their kill trackers visible by default. Fighting Line needed a bit more of a buff, so we improved its reload speed. Within the Herd is active, and a couple of releases back, so now we're increasing its blast radius and damage. With this change, it should be easier to get the damage you need to trigger its perk. Reverted the Season 15 Breach Grenade Launcher blast radius reduction, but just for Fighting Lion, i.e. increased blast radius by 0.4 meters, increased damage by 5%. Eyes Demaro as a raid exotic ought to be better against PvE enemies. With this change, it's solid an option in this role, particularly as a adaptive ordnance perk active. Increased damage versus bosses and champions by 30%. That's absolutely huge. I'm going to use Eyes Demaro for sure now. That will be being tested. Leviathan's Breath always felt like it should absolutely wreck champions, and using its first shot to stun an unstoppable champion without doing much damage felt bad. Archer's Tempo with its catalyst is significant on paper, but in practice that draw speed buff isn't as noticeable as we'd like. Overall, we hope these changes make it feel a bit better against all types of champions and other tough enemies in hard content. The Archer's Tempo perk from the catalyst now has increased effectiveness just on this weapon. The standard draw time scaler from Archer's Tempo is 0.75 times and now is 0.5625 times on Leviathan's Breath. Add a small delay before detonation on champions, mini bosses, and bosses. This is a lot of the impact to stun an unstoppable champion and the detonation to deal bonus damage against the stunned champion. Damage chance to be more of an even split between impact and detonation has increased damage across the board by 50%. Overall damage versus champions roughly doubled, even more compared to shooting an unstunned, unstoppable champion. So we'll have to give that a try for Leviathan's Breath to see if that's worth it. So far, it's just been an absolutely worthless exotic, but who knows, might be worth it now. Huckleberry had an underwhelming engagement ring, updated zoom based on the change to baseline submachine guns, increased zoom stat from 13 to 15. So that could be interesting to see what happens in PvP. Our experiment with using Xenophage into harder hitting but slower firing didn't pan out, so we're increasing the rate of fire and adjusting damage back to what it was. So increase the rate of fire from 100 RPM to 120. Reduce damage per bullet to match the previous, and then damage doesn't benefit from Season 17 machine gun buff versus bosses. So I'm happy that they are not that they're bringing Xenophage back. The nerf it got to the RPM really did hurt it quite a bit, and I don't really see anybody using it anymore. But we'll see what happens with it. Like Monarch is too oppressive when combined with external damage buffs, but we felt like it could be stronger in PvE. With this change, combined with the damage buff change above, we've introduced 60 resilience gate on killing a guardian PvP with a crit while an empowering rift or similar. Reduce poison tick damage versus players by 25%. Change poison damage type from burn to poison. This is largely housekeeping, not gameplay significant. Increase poison tick damage versus AI by 50%. Ooh, that could be really good in PvE now. Lauren Shiver can be difficult to fight against PvP, in part because it does not have it is very high body shot damage. With this change, getting left super weak by a body shot could be less common, though we're keeping an eye on this to see how this change lands and may revisit later. So reduce body shot damage against players by 20%. This will prevent it from being a one-hit kill with a body shot while an empowering rift combined with that change. Interesting. Body damage reverts to old behavior when the weapon's damage mod. Precision damage is any mode unchanged. Okay. Skyburner's Oath felt like it didn't have a niche except for airborne enemies, so we've made a bunch of changes and aiming improvements to ease the use to make it more utility to push it into that airborne role. So now Skyburner's Oath is going to actually look like that AC-130 build that Astacross made. That could be a thing now. So increase ADS projectile speed to 9999. This projectile is now hit scan. Both ADS hipfire now are at 150 RPM. Hip-fire projectiles no longer tracks, but arc similar to a grenade launcher and has a larger detonation size than ADS. The hip-fire detonation also applies a burn to targets. Ooh, it burns targets. Interesting. That'll be good on bottom tree, sun collar, or whatever, the solar warlock. Bonus range to masterwork has been rolled into these base weapons stats of the weapon. The masterwork now grants bonus reload speed instead. Has the highest airborne effectiveness stat of any weapon in the game, 35. The last word play is very different on mouse and keyboard, but does not on a controller. So they reduce the mouse and keyboard recoil penalty from 33 to 22. Arbolous is more dominant than intended in PvE content, able to fill anti-barrier role as well as shield breaking any boss damage. We've made a fairly small adjustment here, but may need to look at it in the future again. So reduce damage versus champions by 25%. It'll still break the barriers in one hit, which is nice. That little nerf it got, though, 25% is a lot of damage. Graviton Lance Catalyst didn't help the weapon enough. We wanted to give it a bit of a boost. This change gives the weapon increasing utility in PvE and PvP, particularly with the buff of the exotic primary weapons in the Witch Queen. So Catalyst changed from granting Hidden Hand to granting Vorpal Weapon and Turnabout. Oh, okay. Interesting. Grand Overture's most recent adjustment switched the missiles to fire in bursts of 5, which allow for more granularity in unloading that damage, but sometimes you just want them all to fly out at once. Reduce time between burst when in missile mode. Holding the trigger will now fire all missiles, and a continuous burst tapping will fire 5-round bursts. Cold Heart arc damage type update and Cold Heart exotic trait. Is this a trace rifle? No longer fits in a world of legendary trace rifles. The ease of use on a sustained damage is also pretty low. Sustained damage creates an ionic trace, and collecting the ionic trace grants energy to all your abilities. Increased grant. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it'll create ionic traces now. That's really cool. That's probably something that's going to happen in they're making that change because of Arc 3.0, I bet. Increased grace time before a damage ramp clears from 0.113 to 1 second. That's a lot of an increase. Previous lens slower damage type update, and generally this needed some tweaks, but to be viable. Sustained damage applies a more useful burn to targets. Wave splitter void damage type update, and the power cycling mechanic was interesting, but ultimately hard to capitalize on. Power level no longer cycles randomly. The default damage output is the same as the old middle tier. Picking up an orb of power now grants 10 seconds of maximum power and caps at 20 seconds up from 5 and 10. Now suppresses targets while granted this mode by picking up an orb. Interesting, so they gave it a little bit of something there. Osteostriga's projectile somehow rotated 90 degrees. Looks a bit weird, so they corrected the rotation of the projectile. And then Lord of Wolves is kind of shotgun, but it has its own custom tuning. It wasn't impacted by the previous shotgun changes and was much too strong with shotguns and fusion rifles getting reduced in range. This brings it more in line. So they reduced the damage fall off, end by 25%. Continuing. Perks. All right. Perks. So note, where enhanced perk exists and an adjustment is needed, it's been adjusted in the same way. Snapshot sights have felt mandatory on sniper rifles forever. With this change, a sniper rifle with snapshot will feel about the same. With one without snapshot will be a lot snappier. Increased ADS animation speed scalar from 0.5 to 0.75. For special ammo weapons, primary ammo weapons are unchanged. Opening shot has felt mandatory on shotgun forever, in large part because it gives part of its buff as a damage fall-off scalar. This isn't something we like on the short-range weapons. You can still feel the range bump with this change unless range is already capped, but it won't let weapons push completely outside their intended engagement ranges. Remove damage fall-off scalar. Increased range stat bonus from 20 to 25. Other stats on this perk are unchanged, so you got 20 aim assist, 5% reduced accuracy cone angle, and then 10% reduced accuracy cone growth. Full choke has been the go-to magazine perk forever, just justified or not. With this change, other magazine options should be competitive. So increased spread angle scalar from 0.95 to 0.9625, i.e. narrow the spread a little less. Smooth Bore has felt like an awkward magazine perk, so we're buffing it a little. Reduced spread angle scale from 1.1 to 1.075. Desperado is a strong perk in its current form. We would like to be able to put it in more weapons without breaking PvP. With this adjustment, we're still going strong, has more PvE utility, and can be applied to pulse rifles subfamilies aside from high impact if desired. So increased fire recovery scalar from 0.415 to 0.7. Reduced duration from 7 seconds to 6 seconds. Remove PvE damage penalty. So I kind of thought they were going to do something with Desperado just because they gave everybody Desperado one of the weekends for trials, so they're hitting it with a little bit of a nerf, but it sounds like we're going to get that on more pulse rifles going forward. Air Assault was shelved a long time ago, but adding the airborne effectiveness stat gave us the opportunity to turn that perk into what that actually does what it says on the description. With this change, airborne gunplay while wounded will be much more effective. So, Rebuilt now grants plus 60 airborne effectiveness stat when wounded. Same trigger conditions as Eye of the Storm. Mulligan was never quite strong enough to warrant a pick previously, but buffing it would have been risky on special weapons. With this change, it's useful on rapid-fire primary weapons where you don't expect every shot to hit, occupying a similar role to triple tap, but inverted. Increased chance to return ammo on a missed hit from 20 to 35% on primary ammo weapons, unchanged on special and heavy weapons. Compulsive reloaders shipped a little weak. With this change, you can feel really feel the reload bump. So increased reload stat buff from 40 to 50, added a 0.95 reload animation scaler. Adagio was allowing for a one-hit body shot with slug shotguns. While this is possible with other perks such as Swashbuckler, the investment required to trigger the perk is much too low for that power bump. With this change, a slug shotgun with Adagio will be less of a monster in PvP, but will still be able to get a headshot kills at greater ranges with the perk active, so reduce the damage bonus from shotguns from 20 to 30%. And then some mods. Icarus Grip will now grant airborne effectiveness stat instead of its previous airborne accuracy penalty scaler. Removed airborne accuracy scaler now grants plus 15 airborne effectiveness stat. Adept Icarus Grip now grants 15 airborne effectiveness stat and 5 handling. Well, that was quite a bit, wasn't it? Let's soak that in for a while. You may need to read a few sections more than once to understand the technical speak behind it all. Heck, you might not really understand the changes until they're in their hands. In any case, we'll be watching the conversation around these planned changes and answering things where we can. I'm going to grab a drink real fast. All right, that was a lot. So, all right, wait, more weapon talk? All right. While the following isn't about weapon tuning, we felt it was important to bundle the following with the Mega TWAB of upcoming sandbox information to keep players like you in the know. Just before last season ended, we announced the list of weapons that would be rotating out of Destiny 2 activities with little time to spare. Some of these weapons could be seen as powerhouses in previous sandbox metas, while others are just happy to be included. Next season and the season after will be no different in an effort to keep loot pools from overcrowding as we continue to develop and release sweet new pieces of gear. Will be a handful of weapons from Iron Banner, Nightfalls, and Trials of Osiris rotating out at the start of Season 17. We're also including a list of weapons that will be rotating out of Season 18 in hopes of giving you a full season to target anything that might be missing from your collection. So, leaving at the beginning of Season 17, Iron Banner included Finality Sniper Rifle, Finite Impactor Hand Cannon, Nightfall is the Comedian and Palindrome, and then Trials of Osiris is Shire's Wrath, damn it, and then also the Messenger. Leaving loot pools at the beginning of Season 18 is Iron Banner, Peace Bond, Sidearm, Archon's Thunder, Nightfall's Plug 1 and Hothead, and then Trials of Osiris, Eye of Soul, and Summoner. Note, Season 18 is a ways out. Weapons included and our planned rotation are subject to change. While we don't have any firm plans to share, we can note that the team is aware of feedback surrounding weapon rotations and availability and looking at opportunities in the future to address it. To keep expectations in the check, it is likely a longer-term investigation, so don't expect too much news over the next season. Once we have more information, we'll be sure to let you know. Stay tuned for announcements on weapon rotation info, and new weapons coming on NH activity. So, near-term abilities tuning. With weapons talk out of the way, let's shift back to some near-term conversations and happenings in Destiny 2. Well, in the near term, we do have some tuning and abilities, exotic armors in the Crucible as well. Next Tuesday, April 26th, Destiny 2 Hotfix 4.0.1.1 will be becoming available with the following changes. So, on Tuesday, Axion Bolt base cooldown increased from 0.91 seconds to from 91 seconds to 152 seconds. Axion bolts have been an absolute bitch in the Crucible, and they are tuning them down, it would appear. You can still build to get a lot of that grenade energy back with double bomber and stuff like that. Titan Barricade base cooldown from the Bastion Void aspect is now equipped for 82 seconds, up from 53 seconds. This matches the recharge rate of Warlock Rift. Offensive Bulwark now provides 60% less bonus grenade energy regeneration in PvP game modes. Whisper of Change now provides 15% bonus damage resistance against players when near a stasis crystal, down from 25. Unchanged versus PvE targets. Renewal Grasps, while equipped, Renewal Grasps increase the base cooldown of the Dustfield Grenade from 62 seconds to 152 seconds. The outgoing damage penalty applied to player victims in the Renewal Grasps Dustfield Grenade reduced from 50 to 20%. Damage unchanged versus PvE targets. Stay tuned for the full patch notes article planned for release alongside the hotfix. All right, so on Tuesday, we will get a patch notes, all that good stuff. Gambit Labs Moat Thief. Looking to next week, we also have our second run of Gambit Labs coming into play. Invasion swaps went off well, with us giving great data and feedback on moat dunking, invasion cadence, and primal healing in a world where you're invited opponents into your playing field when hitting certain thresholds. For this edition of Labs, we'll be exploring the Moat Thieves starting in April 26th. Not much has changed since our original Labs announcement. So fundamentally, the original concept of the Invader was Guardians was taken terror, overpowered and dangerous, something new to have to fight. While that is very compelling, we don't believe it's the only compelling Invader fantasy. We believe the sneaky Moat Thief is worth exploring too. Normal moat drain from banking 2 blockers is disabled. Instead, having every second the Invader is invading, the 1 moat drains directly from your bank to the Invader's bank. Interesting. So the Invader is trying to stay alive for as long as possible, so he might just literally sit there and hide. Keep in mind, Invaders need to be near the bank in order to drain moats. This won't be too much of a hide-and-seek affair. Oh, maybe not. Okay, just kidding. Do you prioritize clearing the effective or active enemy front of enemies, or do you help your teammates address the beefed-up Titan relaxing behind their barricade? Looking to steal some of your hardened moats? Hunters may throw a smoke bomb or 2 in effort to jam up your radar, while Warlocks could throw a strategically placed Wall of Radiance directly above your bank, making it easier to fight alongside the taken blockers they just sent over. Looking forward to your feedback, and we'll be watching the conversation throughout the next week. All right, Prime Rewards. Right there. Looks like we're getting a new... what is that? I have no idea what that is. Oh, that's a new Sparrow, new ship, a Cabal-themed Ghost projection, and a new dance, it looks like, here. And then, let's see here. Hotfix information is going live on Tuesday, 9 a.m. That's about it for the TWAB, folks. We've got a little bit of stuff as far as, movie of the week and artist of the week, but I think this thing has drawn down a lot enough. So let's go ahead and hop down to the the very end here. So, depending on when you're reading this, Trials returning tomorrow or a short hiatus. It'll be another Labs weekend featuring capture zones. Last time Trials was available, a pesky little bug happened, slipped in, granting a few additional adept rewards to players of confidence packages. Well, good news to everyone. This was sort of a feature. While we discussed that in this patch notes on Tuesday, I still wanted to take a moment to highlight this change. Over the last few seasons, we've seen some great feedback and data on Trials rewards. One piece of feedback specifically speaks to the flawless pool that's enabled each Sunday. While this creates a more welcoming environment to those offering differing skill levels in the non-flawless pool, we've heard feedback from those in the flawless pool that things feel a little bit more competitive without much of a change to rewards output. So, moving forward, any player in the flawless pool who is at 7 wins of a given passage will have a chance for adept weapons to drop post-match. Whether you still have flawless passage or ended up with a couple of losses under your belt, will continue to have the chances for post-match adept drops once you've reached 7 total wins. We've been working on this change for a bit, but a small issue led us to backing out the change just before Season 16 began. Throughout that process, an alternate bug was introduced on confidence packages, giving a slight preview of changes to come. Pardon our dust. Yep, I knew it. It was a whoopsie poopsies, and they just decided to go ahead and release it anyways. Yeah, they had planned this. So, I think it was a test. In any case, we're looking forward to watching your feedback roll in this weekend. I've heard this reward might be desirable for those who enjoy long reviews on the battlefield. I never did snag a god roll on Redacted, so I'll be spending some time in there this weekend. Maybe I'll see you out there. With this 9K, our editors round up a behemoth of a blog article in the bag. I'm taking a few weeks off to relax in the rain, sun. You never really know during the Seattle spring. Whatever the spring, it'll be nice to spend some time focusing on physical and mental health. There's not a single doubt in my mind that I'll play some Destiny, especially with some fun events on the way. But I might just hop in the car and start driving without a specific destination in mind. Maybe I'll end up on a mountain, or maybe I'll walk to the beach. Who knows where the road will take me? Now that we have more hands on the community team, we have a few more opportunities to take a breath. I hope you're able to find some time some time this year for the same. Be kind to yourselves, to each other, and I'll see you again soon, DMG. So, boys, that is our that's our TWAB for the day. It was a long one, 48 minutes here on the clock. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. We were live on twitch.tv/INRLord on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On Saturdays, sometimes we do a little bit lore reading. I will drop all that information down in the comments below. If you enjoyed videos like this, go ahead and drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you could. That's the best way to help out the channel. It is free, and I would greatly appreciate it. Other than that, guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.